Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. Before we get into today's show, please do me a small favour. Make sure to drop a like on today's video, subscribe to the channel, bottom right hand corner if this is your first time watching, and let's get straight on into it. So on the show today, we are going to be obviously talking about the game against Arsenal yesterday. We'll be talking a bit about the protest, Glazers out protest. We'll be talking about some of Ruben Amorim's comments in relation to the players not being good enough. A few other topics as well, some transfer-related stuff, you know. But before we get into all of that, I do have a question for you. And it's in relation to the game yesterday against Arsenal. The question is this. Do you feel like Manchester United deserved to beat Arsenal yesterday? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. We are going to start the show off by talking about that game. So Bruno Fernandes obviously scored an absolutely wonderful free kick. And after that, Arsenal were all over us, weren't they, for a period of time. But as the second half progressed, the amount of chances we created was actually quite mad. And I would argue that we deserved to win that game yesterday. I think in the first half, before we scored, we were pretty poor. But a point against Arsenal is not bad. They're obviously one of the better teams in the league at the moment. We're one of the worst teams in the league. When you look at the stats from the game, I know some people don't really care about the stats. We had six shots on target. They had 6 shots on target. They have more possession than us, but obviously, you know, if you have 60% possession but only have 6 shots, and we have 6 shots, I don't know. Possession's a strange one, isn't it? Because some teams just pass the ball sideways, and it's like, unless you're actually doing something with that possession, is it just kind of stat padding to be like, oh, we had 60% possession, but we just passed the ball backwards for an hour? I don't know. But I thought we played all right yesterday. It wasn't amazing, obviously, but I think a point in the grand scheme of things isn't terrible. Hopefully that can give us a bit of confidence into the game against Real Sociedad on Thursday. Because if you look at our last 5 games in all competitions, right? We've drawn against Arsenal, drawn against Real Sociedad, technically drawn against Fulham, and then obviously went to penalties and lost. But like on paper, it's 1-1, isn't it? And they won on penalties. So it doesn't, I mean, obviously it is a loss, but you know what I mean? Like in 90 minutes, it was a draw. We beat Ipswich. We drew with Everton. So the last time we actually lost a game in 90 minutes was in February, 16th of February. So nearly a month ago. And if you look across maybe the last 10 games, we've only lost 2 games in the last 10, which isn't awful considering how bad we are and how poor, the season has been for us. And obviously, this Real Sociedad game, it is our biggest game of the season now. We've got it all in our hands. They did not look amazing when we played them last week, I don't think. They looked okay. They didn't really create anything. We should have won that game again. We had so many chances to score, but we didn't. We weren't clinical. So, yeah, I'm very interested to know, do you think we deserved to beat Arsenal yesterday? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I can see people in the chat saying Højlund had a few chances that he should have scored. Yeah, I was thinking that at the time. I'm surprised he didn't bring on Cheeto, to be honest, which would have been nice. But Aiden Heaven, I just want to say a special shout out to Aiden Heaven. He was absolutely phenomenal yesterday. He looks like a real player, doesn't he? Real player. I would be giving him as much game time as possible now, to be honest. He's only 18 years of age. And he would be classed as homegrown, I think. Yeah, he would be. 18 years of age. We only paid, let's have a look. How much did we pay for him? It was literally next to nothing, wasn't it? There was a story this morning as well saying that apparently Barcelona were trying to sign him before Manchester United did. We paid 1.8 million euros for him. That is a phenomenal signing. So fair play to whoever orchestrated that. 1.8. We paid £1.5 million for Aiden Heaven, and I would say he was one of the best defenders on the pitch yesterday, at least for us anyway. So fair play to him. Really, really good performance, and let's hope that he can build on that. Because I think if Aiden Heaven's going to come through and continue playing like that, I don't think we need to sign another centre-back in the summer. Not one for 50, 60 million, because your centre-backs would be Maguire for 1 more year, Aiden Heaven, De Ligt, Lenny Yoro, Lisandro Martinez. Those are your 5 main centre-backs, right? Happy with that. And then obviously you've got Luke Shaw, who can play as a left-sided centre-back. Mazraoui, who can play as the right-sided centre-back. Dalot, who can play as the right-sided centre-back. And if you want to really, really push it, you could even say Casemiro can play at centre-back. But I think that's pushing it a little bit far. So you've got 8 options there to fill 3 positions, and 9 if you include Casemiro, which, let's be honest, we're not going to do. Obviously, Johnny Evans is leaving. That's confirmed. His contract's up. And Lindelof is also leaving. His contract is up. So I'm pretty happy with our centre-backs. We're not conceding that many goals now. We're not conceding that many chances. So I think the focus probably can move into other positions. And obviously those positions need to be the right wing-back, 100%. They need to be another central defensive midfielder to partner Manuel Ugarte. Casemiro's looks a little bit better in the last couple of games, but I'd still be looking to move him on in the summer, 100%. We need somebody younger, more athletic to play alongside Manuel Ugarte. And then I would be looking at a striker. We need to get a world-class striker, someone at the very, very top level. And ideally another player to play in one of those central attacker midfield positions, because obviously Christian Eriksen's leaving, his contract's up, and Mason Mount's just injured all the time. So I think our summer business, if we spend loads of money on a centre-back, I'm not going to understand it, really. Maybe go and get a cheap one, like a young, up-and-coming centre-back to come into that team. But the fact that we've given Maguire this contract extension, the fact you've got De Ligt, who has a lot of experience, you've got Martinez, who will obviously be back in time for next season, and then you've got Lenny Yoro, Aiden Heaven, and also obviously Luke Shaw, Dalot and Mazraoui, who also will have to play there because they're not wing-back. So I think we're pretty stacked in the centre-back area. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Like, do you think we need to go and sign another centre-back? Would it be a priority position for you? Pyramid says, do you think Lenny Yoro was injury prone? I forgot that Lenny Yoro got injured yesterday. I don't know. I mean, the term injury prone gets thrown around often. It might have just been a little knock. He might be fine for the next game. If we find out that Lenny Yoro is out for the season, then maybe we can start having that conversation. Stay Humble says, West Ham are reportedly interested in Rasmus. I mean, it would be a good signing for West Ham. I could see Rasmus going to a lesser club and doing all right. I don't think he's ever going to be like a 20, 30 goal Premier League striker, personally. But I could see him going to a West Ham and getting like maybe 10 to 15 goals in the Prem. The expectation is going to be completely different, isn't it? At a West Ham versus a Manchester United. He doesn't look confident. Every time he gets the ball, he looks worried. So I can see the story here that West Ham are targeting Rasmus Højlund as Manchester United consider cut price striker sale. Apparently they're also looking at Evan Ferguson as well if they can't get Rasmus Højlund. I mean, Evan Ferguson's another one, isn't he? I remember, was it 2 summers ago? We were being linked to him and the fee was going to be like 100 million for Evan Ferguson, which is mental. And now, I think they'd be lucky to get 30, 40 million for Evan Ferguson. The story says that United are apparently asking for around 40 million for Højlund. I know Samuel Luckhurst from the Manchester Evening News put out a really interesting article a couple of weeks ago where he said that he effectively did a breakdown of every player in the squad and how much money we would need to sell them for to make a profit in relation to PSR, amortization, etc. And I think Rasmus Højlund was 38 million. So if we sold him for 40 million, on our books for this calendar year, we'll have made a £2 million profit. So it's just whether we can get 38 million or more for Højlund. If we can't, then you may as well loan him out for a season or just keep him, because otherwise you're just going to lose money. It makes zero sense. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that one goes. It'd be interesting to see how that develops. I think it's going to be very difficult to sell Højlund for that amount of money. Unless he suddenly, maybe he starts scoring and we win the Europa League and maybe then you get that amount of money for him. But at the moment, his stock price is rock bottom. It really is. I don't think it could be any lower, really. I mean, when was the last time he scored a goal? Let's have a look. So this season, he played 23 times in the Premier League. He scored 2 goals. The last time he scored a goal... The last time he scored a goal in the Premier League was in December. 7th of December. And the last time before that was in September. So far this season, he scored a goal in September and a goal in December, and that's it. That's in the Premier League. Obviously, he's scored a few in the Europa, hasn't he? He needs to improve, and he knows that himself. I've seen so many stories saying that he's his own biggest critic. And then he scored 2 against Victoria Pilsen. It's weird, isn't it? I think he's definitely like very much a confidence-based player, and I know a lot of players are like that. So if you look at the stats of his goals, right? He scored a goal against Nottingham Forest on the 7th of December in the Prem. And then 5 days later, he scored 2 against Victoria Pilsen. So, I mean, if you look at actually before that, right? So he got 2 goals against Bodo Glimt on the 28th of November. And then a week later, he scores in the Premier League against Nottingham Forest. And then 5 days later, he scores 2 against Victoria Pilsen in the Europa. So he scored like 5 goals in the space of 10 days. And then since then, he hasn't scored for like 3 months. And his confidence is just going down and down and down and down. He clearly is a good player. I just think that when his confidence is like this, his striker instinct goes out the window and he's overthinking it. He's worried that he's going to miss, and then he does miss. Whereas you see like the top strikers like Harry Kane, etc., Lewandowski, they're just clinical. They get the ball and the first thing it is, it's like shoot, bang. And there's no stopping it. Whereas with him, he's trying to take an extra touch. He's trying to do a little dummy. He's trying to do something intricate, trying to complicate things. And yeah, I think it is frustrating. Because to score 5 goals in the space of 3 games consecutively, that's decent. But yeah. Somebody says Evan Ferguson's goal ratio is terrible. Yeah, fair. Ant says maybe we just have to accept that Victoria Pilsen is his level. Maybe. It's possible, yeah. I mean, he is still very young, isn't he? Godson says, I know that Rasmus is not at his best at the moment, but he is still very young. If we should bring in a prolific striker... I'm not sure what you mean there. Somebody else says, I still believe there's a striker in Højlund and he needs a lot of help with the way United plays. His confidence has been crushed. We saw a glimpse of how it got crushed against Sociedad. Sean says, but he is, however, good at wrestling players to the ground. Yeah, fair play. He doesn't ever really win the wrestles, but he is very good at participating in wrestling. I would agree with you there. So, yeah, fair play. But usually he does lose the wrestle matches. But he does take part, which is something, isn't it? So, fair play. But yeah, we'll see what happens with him in the summer. Obviously, it's not one for the time being. Like, Al says people say Mainu could end up at Chelsea, but Chelsea aren't going to pay him a 200 grand a week when Cole Palmer's only earning 130. Yeah, I mean, the stories that I've read about Mainu say that he wants to go abroad. But, I mean, who's going to pay him 200 grand a week abroad? You'd have to go to like a Bayern Munich, a Barcelona, Real Madrid. You know, one of those clubs. Like people like Napoli, AC Milan, they're not going to pay Kobbie Mainoo 200 grand a week. It would only be like a team like Bayern Munich who would have those kind of resources to do a deal like that. You know, you look at AC Milan's wage budget, right? Rafael Leao, who's one of the best wingers in the world, is on £120,000 a week. Like, there's no way on earth Kobbie Mainoo could go to Milan and say, hello, I would like 200 grand. It's just not going to happen. So, I don't know. He is potentially backing himself into a corner here. Unless he has had an indication from another club that they're interested abroad, like a Bayern maybe, then it being public knowledge that you want 200 grand a week and if you don't get it, you're going to leave and go abroad is fine if that's what you want to do. But you've got to actually be 100% sure that there's someone out there who's going to give you the 200 grand a week. Because obviously we saw that with Rashford, didn't we? Oh, he wants to leave. Every club in Europe wants to sign him and he ends up at Aston Villa. No disrespect to Aston Villa. But the teams that Rashford were linked to were Barcelona, they were Dortmund, you know, they were all these teams and none of them wanted to sign him in the end because they didn't want to pay his wages. So, yeah, it is a difficult one. I still personally think that this is all just a negotiation tactic from his agent. And I think that in the end, Kobbie Mainoo will sign a new contract. I think it will be I think it will probably be more around £100,000 a week, which I still think is too much. Personally, I don't think he's. I don't think he's warranted. £200,000 a week. I just don't. I think he's injured a lot. I think as a fan base, we do tend to over-egg players sometimes. We overhype them, which is fine. I get it. You want to support your team. You want to support your players. But yeah, we do have a bit of a bad tendency to overhype players, you know? And that sometimes can shoot us in the back, can't it? Because you're like, we put these players on a pedestal, we make them out to be world class, and then they start having bad games and they get injury prone, and then we're like, they're rubbish. Now he wants 200 grand a week. It's a disgrace, you know? So yeah, we'll see anyway. We'll see what happens. But my stance is simple. I think Kobbie Mainoo is a good player. I don't think he's world class. I think he has the potential, but you can't be paying someone 200 grand a week. Domain said, I mean, this is a great question, changing the topic here. Domain says, do you think Ruben Amorim is the right long-term coach? It's a good question. Let's ask the chat. Is Amorim the right long-term manager for United? How, when you say long-term, how long, what are we talking? 10 years, 15 years, 2 years? Let's kind of clarify that before I answer. Do I think that he could potentially be here? Is he the right person to be here for a long period of time? I think he could be, yeah. Do I think he will end up being here for a long time? I mean, if we look at our track record, probably not, realistically. I mean, we've had, 7 managers in the last 10 years. So if he was to be here for a long time, he would have to do phenomenal. If you think about in the past, right? Van Gaal won the FA Cup, he was sacked immediately. Erik ten Hag was literally about to be sacked, won the FA Cup, and then they changed their mind and decided to keep him. So even if you win trophies at Manchester United, your job is still on the line. It's not really like any other club where, you know, you win a trophy and then that's it. Like if Arsenal win a trophy this season, Arteta will probably be there for another 5 years. Al says, I can't answer that question. There's not enough evidence either way. I think there is enough evidence either way, because if you were to say no, I don't think he'll be here a long time, there is enough evidence because every manager who comes to Manchester United seems to fail. And we've had, 7 managers in the last 10 years. So that would say, no, he's not going to be here for a long time. But then on the other side, you could say he answers everything. He answers the media's questions really well. He's really honest. He's publicly said that the players aren't good enough and that he needs better players. He's clearly a good manager. He won countless trophies for Sporting. Like, he is probably on paper, I would say, other than Mourinho, I think Van Gaal was a little bit past it when we got him, to be honest. But other than Mourinho, I'd say he probably was on paper the best manager we've had since Sir Alex. Probably on paper. Like David Moyes had won nothing. Ralph Rangnick was more of a director of football, wasn't he? Ollie had won nothing. Erik ten Hag. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so on paper, I think he's a good manager. But obviously Manchester United is a cesspit, isn't it? And so, yeah. I think it all depends. I think obviously he's not going to be sacked this season, no way. But if he does terribly next year and we spend loads of money, then who knows? And you've seen how gun-ho Ineos are with sacking managers. Not managers, sorry, sacking like staff members. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a difficult question. I think, let's rephrase this. Do I think Ruben Amorim is the right man to take Manchester United forward? And do I hope that he is here for 10 to 15 years and we're successful? Yes. I like Ruben Amorim a lot. I like the way he speaks. I like his honesty. I've seen how his Sporting Lisbon side play, and it's a good, attractive style of football, and I'm excited to hopefully see that. Do I think it will work? Do I think we'll reach that? I'd say it's still 50-50. The same as I said on the first ever video we did when he was announced as the manager. I said, this is exciting, this is great, but it's 50-50 as to whether it will work. And I'm sticking with that because I think it is 50-50. It is almost impossible to give a definitive answer right now there are so many compelling arguments on both sides as to whether it will work or won't work. Yeah. So fingers crossed. Hopefully we have a great season next year. Hopefully next year we've had a massive rebuild. Maybe we're not in Europe. We just focus on the Prem, 1 game a week, a whole week's worth of training, and we get top 4 minimum, and I'd be happy with that. But obviously it could go the other way. You might have no European football. You might start the Prem really poorly, and then people are going to be like, I'm not sure if he's the right man. So it is 50-50. It's completely hanging on a balance at the moment, I think. I think if he didn't speak so well and wasn't so likeable and didn't have a previous good track record, I reckon he would have been gone by now, because our form has been awful and we haven't got a style of play. And that was the main thing that the Erik ten Hag outers would scream for weeks and weeks and months. Oh, I don't care if we're winning trophies. I want a style of play. I don't, and now we're winning no trophies, winning no matches, and don't have a style of play either. So I think, as I said, if he wasn't so likeable, if he wasn't so honest, and if he didn't have a previous track record, I think he probably would have been gone. Al says, do you think Ineos will give him 200 million this summer? I mean, it depends, doesn't it? Are we going to be in Europe? Is Rashford going to go? Is Casemiro going to go? I think the better question is, should Ineos give him 200 million this summer? And the answer should be yes, because we need to rebuild the whole squad. Will it happen? Hard to say. It's possible. It's doable. But everything we're seeing is that they need to sell to buy. Yeah. Ricky says you can't give him another 200 million after just sacking 400 people. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. You give him £200 million to pay on some players who may flop, and then you also sack 400 normal working class people. It's like, yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Feels like a good point to end today's show. Thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you all tomorrow. Bye for now.